Boker Tov. Today's daf is Daf Nun Aleph in Gitin as we learn for Fushla Veloz Ben Ruma and Yosef Ben Chaim Michal. So the Mishnah had said that when it comes to things which are not clear, you cannot collect from the Chasam Shabbat. In other words, if you owe me money, let's say a case of daughters whose father died, and they want to get maintenance for the rest of their lives if they never get married or until they get married, it's not clear how much they're owed. It's not written down, or according to Rav Chanina, it's not a fixed amount. So how can a later purchaser who had bought things, let's say, from the father before he died or from the estate, how can he protect himself? In other words, if there's a previous lien, you don't know how much it's going to collect. Let me just give you a simple example. If you go to the bank and you want a mortgage for your apartment that you're buying here, right? And you want 5 million shekels. And the bank says, okay, we'll assess your house. They send a shamai, right, an assessor, and he praises the house for 1 million shekels. They're not going to give you 5 million shekels, right? So what are they going to collect from? You say, I need 5 million shekels to buy the house. Okay, but if you don't pay, what are we going to collect from? They don't know where you're going to collect from. Or they say, we have no idea how much the house is worth. Nobody's willing to assess it. So you don't know how much your obligation can be. And that's what happens over here in the Mishnah. In the case we had where a person bought a stolen field, and he improved it, there were payros. Then the person who was stolen from comes and collects the field, takes the field back from him. Now, the person who had bought the field from the Goslin wants to go to the Goslin and collect from him. We have a star, a bill of sale. I bought the field from you, and I proved it, and these are the payros. What am I going to get? He'll get a field from the guy if the guy had other properties that he sold to some other guy later on. Fine, but what about the payros? That's not a fixed amount. So the later purchaser cannot protect himself. You can't protect yourself. You could say, listen, I'm buying from this guy, and these are the previous liens that are on him. 1 million shekels here, 500,000 shekels here. He can figure it out. But if it's an indeterminate amount, because it wasn't written down or it's not fixed, how is the guy going to protect himself? I don't know what your obligations are. Maybe you owe money, an endless amount of money to your daughters. You know. Pardon?
Didn't they have appraisers then?
Yeah, they had appraisers, but how are you going to appraise how much the fruits are going to be worth over a period of time, or how many payers are going to be, or how long the girl is going to be before she gets married? There are things. If it's the fixed piece of land, yes, that they know how much that's worth, but he doesn't know what other obligations are going to be there. That's the problem over here. So as we say, if the man has money, okay, fine, take it from him. If he has properties that are in his rishus, take whatever you want. If you're owed that money, but if you're taking it from other people who bought from him later properties, how are they going to protect themselves? So you can't collect. That's what the Mishnah had said. So the question was yesterday: is it because the stuff is not written down? Sometimes it is written down, like in the case of a daughters or a wife, their mazonos is written down. It's written down that they can collect, but it's only for bnei chora, not for mishubadim. So the writing down doesn't necessarily help. Rav Chanina said it's because it's not a fixed amount. It's not a fixed amount. How can you protect yourself? If I'm going to go buy a field from somebody, I'm going to give them $1 million. So I know that, if something goes wrong over here, he has I can collect from other properties. Let's say this field is stolen. It's not really his. He sells something which isn't his. What am I going to go after? So I could say I'm going to go after this and this and this. He has other $1 million of assets that I can go after. But if I can't, I don't know what his obligations are, because let's say he lent money to somebody without a shtar, not known to me. How am I going to protect myself from that? So therefore, we say you cannot collect for things like that from the chasam mishubadim, because otherwise nobody will do business that way. Why would I lend money to somebody who may have endless obligations to some previous wives that he had, and I don't know how much it's going to be, or he had some outstanding loans that are not written down. So for outstanding loans that are done, you can't. That's the problem. So for those things, because of those things that aren't written down, you can't protect yourself from those things. So therefore, we said that you can't collect from the chasam. It's not fair to those people. If those people, if he had obligations and he sold stuff to other people, the other people who sold stuff and written down, they see what his obligations are. You can't come and say, a wife can't come later on and say, well, you owe me for 50 years of food. Or some guy says, he lent me some money in shul. He lent me once $1 million. Give me, I wasn't written down. How can I protect myself? So you can't collect from people like that. Tashma, so we're trying to prove over here, is it dafka ksuvim, or Rav Chanina said because it's not a fixed amount. So the question was, does Rav Chanina require both a fixed amount and written down, or just one or the other? Tashma, or just a fixed amount. Tashma ditmar misham eis v'niach shtei baros. The law is like this: if a man, the rabbis made a takana, that when a man dies, who gets his assets? Only the boys. However, they said that 1/10 of the assets of all his estate should go to each girl for her dowry. Daughter's not married yet, gets 10%. So let's say a man died and he left 2 daughters and a son. Now the son gets everything. The son gets the Yerusha, but each girl gets 10% of the dowry when she of the assets as a dowry when she gets married. The first girl was getting married and she took a tenth of the assets. The second girl wasn't married yet. She was only 12 or whatever. By the time she wanted to get married, the son died. And when the son died, he had no other children. It was just the 2 girls and the son. The son gets everything, but if the son died and there was nobody else in the family, the girls inherit, like we're going to have in the parsha this week. No stuff, right? They get it. So now the question is, so who these 2 girls are going to split it? But wait, the first girl already got 10% of the assets for her dowry. Should the second girl get her 10% too before they split it? So Rabbi Yochanan Shnia Vitra. It's too bad she forfeited her share because she's going to get half the assets anyway, right? She's going to get half of the remaining. She doesn't have to take 10% first and then split it. She's going to get half of whatever's left there anyway. That's enough. We said we said for Parnasa, this is for her dowry. You take even from the Chasim Mishubadim, even though you don't take from Mazonos, for sustenance, for maintenance, for food. You don't take from the Chasim Mishubadim, as we said, because it's not a fixed amount, and it's not written down to collect from the Chasim Mishubadim, but from Nasi you take out. Why should she forfeit that? You even take out from the Chasim Mishubadim, as you even take it out from assets that the father sold subsequently to other people. She could take her dowry from that because her dowry was like a guaranteed part of her father's estate. Parnasa to make its kaisa. Now wait a minute. You say Parnasa, you take out from the Chasim Mishubadim, even from assets that the father sold. You said yes, there's a shayla if he gave it, is that the same? But at least if he sold it, it's certainly the Chasim Mishubadim. But Parnasa to make its kaitza michto. But Parnasa is not written down. But it's a fixed amount. It's 1/10 of his assets. The kamotzi, and you take it out too. So you see over here the chora that Rav Chanina holds. All it has to do is be fixed. The question is, Rav Chanina says if it's a fixed amount, does it need to be fixed and written down? Here the chora you see that it's fixed. If it's fixed, even though it's not written down. So no, shiny Parnasa keeping this like since everybody knows about it. Come on, it's written down. In other words, it's well known that when a man dies, each daughter gets 10% of the assets. If there's 10 daughters, they take the whole thing, basically, except, they only take 10% of what's left. The son gets a little bit, but basically get 10%. So in these 2 cases, in a regular case here, if a man died and left the son and 2 daughters, each daughter would take 10% of the assets, and the other 80% would go to the son as his Yerusha. So over here, it's as if it's written down. Okay, another proof. Maser Bar Noach, Mason, what happened in a case like this? A woman had a daughter from a previous marriage. Okay. She gets married to Reuven now, and Reuven's not obligated to feed that daughter. It's not his child. But she makes and says, listen, I'm getting married in a condition that you're going to support this child, let's say for 5 years. You're going to give her money. Okay, fine. Then he divorces her, and she marries Shimon, another guy, not related. Marries another guy, Shimon. And she makes the same deal with him. I want you to support for 5 years. Now, they each have a deal, even though the first guy divorced, he has to support the child for 5 years. So what they do is, one of the 2 gives food, let's say, for 5 years, and the other one gives money. She can only eat so much, right? It's whatever her allowance is for eating. Point is that both have to pay. Mesu, right? Now let's say those 2 guys die, but they get their own daughters. In other words, let's say Reuben and Shimon all said their own children with this lady. They only get in Chasam B'nei Chorin, meaning, like we said, where does Mazonos come from? You don't know how much it's going to be. But she was part of a deal, right? He wasn't feeding her. He was feeding this stepdaughter. Each of one of them, Reuben and Shimon, were each feeding their stepdaughter as part of a deal. It's a separate agreement. It wasn't part of the regular ksuba. And she gets it's like a loan. Make a special deal. I'm marrying you on the condition you're going to give. You're going to support the shul for 5 years. Whatever it was, that's a separate deal. It's not part of the regular ksuba. So what do you see over here? Over here also you see that even though it's not written down, but it says fixed amount. That's all you need. You don't need it to be written down. That shows that Rav Chini holds only has to be fixed amount. In each case, this lady who got married, she wasn't stupid. She made a kinyan with Reuben, made a kinyan with Shimon. Rashi once made a kinyan, and any kinyan is made to be written down too, so they write it down. Tosa says no, it's even stronger because writing down by Ksuba doesn't mean anything. He's still only collecting the Chasam Mechornos we had before. So Tosa says a kinyan is stronger than the written down. So you can't prove from these cases because it's if it's written down. So if that's the case, Yihochi B'nos Nami. So what do you mean? If you say you made a kinyan, so maybe she got a kinyan for his own daughters too. What's the deal that only her daughter, the stepdaughter, gets paid? What about the daughters themselves of Reuben and Shimon? They should also be able to collect from the Chasam Shubarim. That's Mishikanu Zu. Made a kinyan for the stepdaughter, not for his own daughters in each case. My Piska, well, how is that a definite thing? Why would you say that his own daughters, their own daughters, Reuben and Shimon's own daughters, only collect from the Chasam Echorim? But the stepdaughter gets from the Chasam Shubarim. Why? Because he made a kinyan for this, not for that. Why would you say it's definite? He says, Basishto, the Havim B'Shas kinyan. The stepdaughter who was there at the time that the mother got married, she got married to Reuben and Shimon each when she had a stepdaughter. She already had the daughter. She was there. Behind the kinyan, they made a kinyan there at that time. Bito lo B'Shas, his daughter, his own daughter, came later after they were married. Obviously, he didn't have his own daughter when he married this woman. Shaskin lo Mahana came kin does not for us. So what do you mean? Milo Askin and David Tavai B'Shaskin. They could have both been Shaskinyan. Going to Gir Shvahadra. Let's say Reuben married this woman who had a daughter already. So there's a stepdaughter. They had a child. Then Reuben divorced the woman, divorced her, and then remarried her. He wasn't a Kohen, married her again. So when he married her again, there was both the stepdaughter and his own daughter. So they could have both been a kinyan there too. It's not because at the time of the marriage, this girl wasn't there. She could have been there if he took her back after divorcing her. Elos is the reason to beat the Tanai Bes and Kachla, his own daughter who eats with the Tanai Bes. That's part of the Ksuba, the agreement. Lo Mahana Kinyan, kin doesn't help. Basishto, the Lab, the Tanai Bes and Kachla. The stepdaughter who he's not obligated to feed, it's not his own daughter. She's not eating because of the Tanai Bes like a Ksuba. Mahana Kinyan can help, says Rachim Migragarla. Just because there's a Tanai Bezin, she's worse off. In other words, his own daughter who eats for the Tanai Bezin, the kinyan doesn't help for her. The stepdaughter who doesn't eat because of the Ksuba, the Tanai Bezin, the kinyan does help. Why should the fact that there's a Tanai Bezin that he's obligated to feed his own daughter be any worse off if there's a kinyan for both of them? Elabito, keeping the Tanai Bezin, the reason is this. Since his own daughter he has to feed because of the Tanai Bezin, which is effectively part of the Ksuba, so the assumption is maybe he set aside money for her. In other words, he has a stepdaughter who he's obligated to pay for 5 years, and the other guy's also for 5 years. But his own daughter, even though it's a Tanai Bezin, the assumption is since he has a part of the Ksuba, it's a sign he has a separate bank account that he set up for her. It's in Switzerland or wherever they keep money these days, right? He set up a separate account for her, so we assume that, and that's why she cannot collect from the Chasam Mishubad. Okay, so we weren't able to prove so far. Does Rav Chanina hold that it has to be fixed in order for you to be able to collect from the Chasam Shubarim or only written down? Tashma Amrav Nasim. Masai, when is all this true? When is all this true? And it's what all this true? That you don't know the amount. We said the same is true for a daughter or a wife collecting mizonos, or for the case we said with the Gazlan. Remember, what's the case of the Gazlan? The guy stole a field and he sold it to number one. Sold it to man number one. And now the owner of the field who was stolen from comes and collects field number one. Now the guy comes from number one. Now number one, what is he going to do? He's going to go to back to the Goslin and say, Yomi the field, we have a written down star. Okay, the guy says, I don't have anything yet, but you have other fields that you sold subsequently. Let me go after them. I'm the first, right? If I bought my field first and you sold it from another field to somebody else, I'm entitled to this one first. I have a prior lien. Okay. When do you say? So what do we say? You can only collect the field you can get, but the payrolls, all the produce, we don't know how much it is. It's not written down, etc. When is that he cannot collect for the fruits except from the Chasam Mecham? As if the Goslin has assets in his possession, sure, you could take that for the fruits too. But if he doesn't, to go after the Goslin's second purchaser, the guy who bought from some other field, that's only, you can't do that. It's only when the second guy, the second purchaser of the Goslin, The Gazlan sold the one field that was a stolen field, right? And it was taken away from him. So the Nigzal now goes to the Gazlan. The Gazlan says, I don't have any assets, but I have another field that I sold to some other guy, to number two. Go after that. When do you say that he can't go after that for payros? That's only if the second purchaser bought before the first guy, the guy who bought the stone field, had his fruits grown. Let's say the first guy who bought the stolen field, he grew his produce and it was all fully grown and he had $10,000 worth of fruits there. And then the Gazlan sold another field to number two subsequently. Then the first guy, or the first number one, can go after the fruits too, even from the second guy, because he had his assets on the ground. The fruits were there before the second guy bought from the Gazlan, before the second guy bought a piece of land from the Gazlan. If his improvement, his fruits grew before the second guy bought it, then you could even collect Mechas Mishubanim. Alma, Mishum Delo Karamu. The reason has nothing to do with written down or cuts of. The reason why you can't collect is because he wasn't there first. It's simply a question of lien. How do liens work? If I bought something first, if there were five guys, I bought something, you bought something, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The first guy has the prior lien because he bought it first, and therefore in other words, what's obligated to him is not only the field, but field's taken away. I'll take the second field that you had that was sold, not the third, the fourth, and the fifth. Okay, the fifth guy who bought, you take his first because the fifth guy could say, the fourth guy and the second, third, fourth guy, they go after him. When we bought, you still had that property available. Nothing to do with the ksubim. That's how Rashi learns. Tosfos learns it a little bit differently. Tosfos says that it's not that it is ksubim. In other words, if my produce grew, if I'm the number one who bought the stolen field, my produce grew. By the time the second guy bought it, and you know how much produce was there. It was there on the ground, $10,000 worth of fruits before the second guy. So he learns this is like ksubim. That's how Tosfos learns. Rashi learns not ksubim or ksubim. So the Gemara says Tanoi, it's machlokes Tanoi. According to Rashi, there's three opinions now. One says the problem is it's not written down. Like we don't know, it's not written down. So if it's not written down, people can't protect themselves. Chanina says because it's ksubim, it's not a fixed amount. If it's not a fixed amount, people can't protect themselves. If you were to say that a girl who needs mazonos for years and years and years, who would ever do a deal with somebody? Why would I lend money to a guy or buy something from him if he has a prior obligation that's unknown? We don't know how much it's going to be, right? The bank is not going to give you a loan for your house, even if it's a certain right value, if they know that you owe money to 20 other people. And we don't even know how much that money that is. You owe money to the mafia. You owe money for things that can't be assessed right now. Nobody's going to do that. So he says, like the Mishnah said, you don't take for payros for a girl or for improvement of the field if the first field was bought from a Gazlan, a mazon isha banos, right? They take an olam. They take it because it'll be impossible if it's not written down. So you see, the first opinion is the Brisa says, like the Mishnah didn't say the reason. The Mishnah says tikkun olam. Here he says, what's the tikkun olam? Because it's not written down. It's not written down. People don't know about it, so they don't know. I know when I buy a field from you, I buy a house from you, I know what your obligations are. You sold two other fields, right? You had two other fields that were sold, each for $1 million. So I know those are your obligations. But I don't know, and those guys have priority to me. But I don't know about payros or loans that you made that weren't written down or things like that. So if it's not written down, I know. He says, what tikkun olam is even if it's written down, there's no fixed amount. The key is that it's not fixed amount. So according to Rashi, there's three reasons why we say this. One is ksubim. Some say because it's not written down. One says because it's not fixed amount. That's for panina. And now we have another opinion because at the time that your payros grew, somebody had already bought the other field. If your payros grew before the other guy bought the field, then it's different. So there's three reasons here. According to Tosfos, the ksubim is the reason for the kaddim. That if your fruits grew before the second guy bought the land from the Gazlan, so then there was a fixed amount. You knew how much it was. When he bought it, he knew that there was a fixed obligation. Yeah, but it's hard to know. It's hard to know. You don't know how much it's going to be.
$5,000. So
Yeah,
it's $12,000 comes out.
Yeah, but they don't know that. It's not a fixed amount. The guy doesn't know. He doesn't know to protect himself. You go to you know how much your field went for. You know how much there's a star. It's written down. It's registered today. They know what your obligations are, right? That's how things are done today. They know if you have any outstanding liens. You go to get a loan from the bank and you say, I don't have any outstanding loans on the property. They know what's outstanding. It's registered. They know what your obligations are. But things that are going to grow fruits and improvement, who knows what it's going to be worth? Depends what you plant. I mean, there's a million different variables, so there's no way to know. The Mishnah said, if a man finds, if I find a wallet outside and I come into the shul and I say, oh, anybody lose their wallet? I say, oh yeah, great, thank you very much. It was $1,000 in there. I said, no, there was only $5 in there. So what's the deal? Do you have to swear? We know what shvua do you do in Midaraisa? The shvua is because there's different shvuas, but one of the shvuas for shakal for a claimant and the defendant, let's say, is motiv mixas. If you say I owe you $100 and I say I owe you 50, so I got to swear. I admit that I owe you 50. The other 50 I have to swear that I don't owe you, that I paid you back already. I don't owe the money. Right? That's the motiv mixas. But over here we said you find an item. You don't have to swear, otherwise nobody will return an item, right? That shows Aveda. So Rabbi Yitzchak has a variation. He says, listen, you found, the claimant says, you found two of my purses, right? They were tied together. I only found one. Nishba, he has to swear it's motiv mixas, but he just found it. He found it. That goes against our Mishnah. Mishnah says if somebody finds something, no claim yes. So there's a shiloh over here. Maybe did he turn it in or did the other guy see it? The guy walks into shul with one person, says, hey, that's my purse. It was tied to another one. You found it. The guy says, no, I only found one. So he still has to make a shvua. Motiv mixas. Shnei shvarm kshurim mitzasli. You found two of my oxen. Balaam says, no, that's only one. He doesn't have to swear. And a nishma. Why? My time is shvarim, and that's what that is, because oxen can separate from one another. They pull themselves apart. So the guy makes the claim, says, you must have found my other ox too. Not necessarily. Maybe they weren't there anymore. He doesn't have what we call a tinus bari, a definite claim. He suspects, that's my ox. Where's the other one? I don't know. I didn't find it. The other one wasn't there. Okay, so you don't really have much of a claim. But kisan lo menaschoidadi, but purses don't separate from one another. So therefore, when you say you have one purse and I say there were two, so I have more of a definite claim. The purses didn't separate from one another. Now somebody else could have taken them apart too before, didn't find any money and threw one away or whatever, we don't know. But it's more of a definite claim. So let's say he says you found two of my oxen. The guy says, yeah, there were two. I found them. I return one of them to you. Then a raise an but that is motiv mixas. Because now, even though the claimant doesn't know for sure that the oxen were not separated, but the person, the finder, admits that he found two, but he says, I returned one. So in all these cases, Rabbi Yitzchak says you have to make a shvus. Motiv mixas. Doesn't more Rabbi Yitzchak, let's say, what about our Mishnah? He doesn't hold about our Mishnah, which says that if you find something, you don't have to make a shvua because otherwise nobody's going to return anything. So the Gemara says, it's a machlokes about it. Who the Amar who says there are exceptions to the rule. It depends. The Tanya. Sometimes you swear even though you're motive yourself. There's no claim against you. What's the standard case of motive mixus? You claim I owe you $100. Let's say I admit that I owe you only $25. Right? I owe you $25. $75 I paid you back already. And I owe you the other $25. That's motive mixus. Sometimes you swear even when the other guy didn't have a claim. Says Kate said, your father, you're a Yassam now, but your father lent me $100 once. I paid him back already 75, half, or let's just make it simple so we understand what the shvu is on. I paid him back 75, I only owe him 25. I raise an ishma, I have to swear. Now you didn't claim anything from me. I admit it. I came to you and I said, you know what? Your father lent me $100, paid him back 75. You have to swear on the other 25. I raise an ishba. The Chacham says no. If there was no claim, it's like I'm returning your lost item. I come to this kid, he's sitting shiva there, he doesn't know anything. And I say, by the way, I still owe your father $25 because he lent me 100 and I paid him back 75. The kid didn't know anything. So that's like I'm returning a lost item. The Chacham say you don't have to swear at all there. But Bezman says you do. So he says, this is like a case of Mesha Veda, but this is like a motive mixus. In other words, normally motive mixus is a very clear thing. You owe me $100, and I say, I only owe you 25, I paid you back some. That's motive mixus. Mesha Veda is I find a wallet in the shul, and outside the shul, and I come in there, and then I say, missing something, I'm sorry, this is what I found. I don't have to swear at all. But here, Rabbi Yitzchak says, certain cases you do have to swear, even when you found the item, when the claimant has a pretty good claim, there were two persons there together, or you admitted you found the two oxen and I returned one, that's motive mixus too. Why don't you say, if you find an item, you don't have to swear because of tekanas, what we call tekanas hashabim, tikkun olam, for the betterment of society, otherwise nobody's going to return anything. He says, no. He goes like Rav Meir Shapiro says, sometimes even on your own claim, where nobody claimed anything against you, you still have to swear. Rav Meir Shapiro, let's say Mesha Veda part. The same question we asked Rav Yitzchak, he doesn't know Mesha Veda is part from swing. Amalei, Amarav, the Tono cotton. What happened here is, yes, if you just returned an item and I walked into shore and said, anybody lost this item? I don't have to make a shvur there. Over here, speaking about where there was a claim against him, but a child, it was a child that did it, an under bar mitzvah kid. The Tono cotton is cotton needed with shashis, but child's claim doesn't mean anything, kid doesn't know anything. You don't have to swear for a claim of a chev shet of a cotton. Gemara says, I'll tell you what, my cotton gadol. I'll tell you what, when you mean cotton, we don't really mean a cotton under bar mitzvah. I mean, he's a gadol, he's bar mitzvah. Micro cotton, because we said when it comes to his father's business, he's like a cotton. He doesn't know what his father did. So if he says, hey, didn't my father lend you money? Even though he's bar mitzvah already, but what does he know? So that's not such a strong claim. So why do you call that tainus atzmo? But says sometimes you swear on your own claim. When this kid claimed against you, that's not tainus atzmo, tainus acheru. The kid's bar mitzvah and he's saying you owe me money. So it's tainus acheru v'odas atzmo. It's a claim somebody else and he admitted. So it's cool tainus acheru. Every claim is like that. One guy claims and the other guy admits to some of it. Every claim is like that. Why do you call that odas atzmo? And why would he say pamim? Sometimes you swear on tainus atzmo. You always swear. If person number one says number two, you owe me $100, and the other guy says I only owe you 25, I paid you back 75. That's a classic case of a claimant and a denier, call him a defendant, and he has to make a shvur d'oraisa. There's always times Ella. The truth is, we are speaking about the claim of a katan, of a child, and the claim of if it's an adult, then it's a valid claim. Of course, why would you say everybody should say motiv mixus? Even the Rabbana would say that's motiv mixus. Over here, we're speaking about where the claim is like a lousy claim. It's a claim of a child, okay, which is similar. This is a hard comparison to what we started with Rav Yitzchak. I found two persons outside. And you say, I found one person. The guy says, no, there were two persons there. So it's motiv mixus, isn't it? I found it. Fine, I'm a nice guy. I came in and claimed. He says, yeah, but I know there were two there, so I have a pretty strong claim. Or I found an ox, and you say, there were two oxen there, and you admitted, well, there were two, but I gave you back one. So in that case, it's a valid claim. He admits that he found two. Still, he's admitting. Is he coming on himself? The way Rash the Pashup shot is that he walked in and he says, hey, I found an ox here. And somebody said, no, there were two. It's okay, there were two, but I gave you back one already. So is he coming himself, or is there first a claim against him? Here we're talking about there was a claim against him. The child claimed against him. What's the shiloh over here? The shiloh over here is when you say motiv mixus, meaning, that famous Gemara we have in many places in Shas. Why did the Torah say, listen, if a guy comes and says to me, Yomi $100, and I say, I never borrowed any money from you. I never saw you before. What's the deal? I don't have to swear. You're crazy. I don't owe you anything, right? Midrabanan, there's what we call shvuas hesses midrabanan. But midrash, you don't have to swear. You only have to swear. If I admit part of it. Why is that? Rabbi can be dumb. Rabbi says, but why did the Torah say that a motiv has to swear? I wouldn't have the chutzpah to lie. If I say I don't know you anything, it's the truth. Because I wouldn't have the chutzpah to deny the whole thing. In general, normal people wouldn't have the chutzpah to lie, deny a whole claim. He would really deny the whole thing, but he can't because he wouldn't have the chutzpah like that. I wouldn't have the chutzpah about chobek. You lent me money, you were a nice guy, you lent me money when I was in need, I wouldn't have the chutzpah to deny the whole thing. Right? So therefore I should admit the whole thing. So I'm not really, I don't have the chutzpah to lie. So I'm not really a liar, but I don't want to admit the whole thing, because if I admit the whole thing, I'm going to have to pay you right now. I don't have the money. The only reason I'm not motivated, I'm pushing you off. I want to gain time over here. I'm just pushing up. So I figured, okay, so I'll say that I don't know you that much. I only owe you a little bit. I don't know you the whole thing. I'm trying to gain time over here. Hashem said, I should make a shvur, so I should be motivated to the whole thing. In other words, we're assuming over here when a Amai says, I owe me $100, and I say, I only owe you 25, I paid you back 75. We're assuming that he does owe him the money. Why? Because if he didn't owe him the money, he would just deny the whole thing. And if he denied the whole thing, he would be telling the truth, because the guy wouldn't have the chutzpah. So why is he admitting to part of it? Because he really owes him the money, but he doesn't have the chutzpah to lie. So he doesn't have the chutzpah to lie if he knows the guy lent him money. So he really owes him the money. So why isn't he motivated the whole thing? Because he doesn't have the money now. He's trying to buy time. So he says, okay, I owe you some, I don't owe you the whole thing. So the Chacham, Hashem said, make a shvur, so you should be motivated. He didn't have the chutzpah to lie to him or to his son, even to his young son. He wouldn't have the chutzpah to lie. And therefore, this is a case of motor mixes in the Torah. Wouldn't have the chutzpah to lie. This is not a case of Meishav Beta. Meishav Beta is like a case where a guy could say, I don't have to show up here at all. I don't owe you anything. You didn't do me a favor. I found this on the street. So it's not a Meishav, it's not returning it. He wouldn't have the chutzpah to lie. When there's a claim against him, even the claim of a child, it's a valid claim because the guy wouldn't have the chutzpah to lie. Even if a 6-year-old kid at the Shiva says, hey, didn't I saw my father give you $100 last week? You wouldn't have the chutzpah to lie because you know it's true. And you know that the father lent you money. Therefore, this is not Meishav Aveda, it's mixes Rabbanan Sabri, Bohud and Meishav. You wouldn't have the chutzpah to lie to the father. No mayas, but to the son he would lie. Whether it's the son's an older son or not, he wouldn't have the chutzpah to lie. And since he's not mayas, Meishav Aveda, since he's not mayas and he says, what? No, I owe you $50 or I owe you 25, he's like he's returning a lost item, because if he wanted to lie, he could have denied the whole thing. Or he could have just shut up and not returned the item. Just walk by the item in the street and not return it. So therefore, the Shiloh over here is, yes, the Mishnah said that a Meishav Aveda doesn't have to make a shvur. And they take all them, otherwise people are going to return. The question of is this Meishav Aveda or not? Is this Meishav Aveda? Both in the case that we started with Yitzchak, where he said there were two, the guy came in with a purse, and he says, no, there were two here. Well, I only found one. Is that Meishav Aveda or not? He wouldn't have the chutzpah to lie. Right? Is that like Meishav Aveda? The guy made a claim against him. If you let he just showed up, it's a little bit difficult to compare. So difficult. If it's a case where the guy just showed up, so he's not denying anything. He walked in himself. Why shouldn't that be Meishav Aveda? Rav Lozman Yaakov speaking about there was a claim against him. It was a claim of a katan. And he says there's no difference of a claim of a katan, a claim of the father wouldn't have the chutzpah to lie. So therefore, he can't deny the whole thing. And he wouldn't have the chutzpah to lie to the person who lent him the money or to his son. And therefore, when he admits to part of it, he's effectively mimotiv makes us. He has to make a shvur. Whereas the chacham say no, he would have the chutzpah to lie. The kid didn't lend him the money. The father did, so he could lie to the kid. Since he didn't lie, it's like he's just returning a lost item, and therefore you believe him without having to make a shvur. That's the machlokes over here. Why, if he would lie a little bit about denying the money, isn't he chashit? So why do you believe his shvur anyway? According to Rav Meir Shapiro, the answer is that he's not really lying. He owes him the money. He admits that he owes him the money, some of it. And the rest of the money, he's just trying to push him off because he's trying to buy time, but he's not really a liar. I'll pick from the Mishnah tomorrow. Mitzvah Shem Dapim days. Have an easy fast.